Welcome back to Liberty and Finance. We have a very special edition today. Our guest will be with us in memory and in spirit. This is a tribute to our good friend Rob Kirby. And I'm going to be sharing with you excerpts of some of the most noteworthy interviews I did with Rob over the nearly a decade that he appeared here together with me. First on our original Reluctant Preppers channel, where we were recording audio only for years. And then later, as we transitioned to video recording, then also with us here on Liberty and Finance over these past several years. And I thought of wearing a black necktie in deference to Rob's memory, but I thought, he would probably prefer gold. That's why I'm wearing my gold necktie today. And now we'll join memories and sharing our whole hearts, our whole gratitude, our recognition of our brother Rob, who's with us in spirit and who always spoke his mind and always kept his feet on the ground, always told you exactly what he was thinking, unabashedly, in a very direct, forceful, and refreshing way, unfiltered, and straight from the heart. Here's some memories of the times that we spent together with Rob Kirby, for all of us to remember and to cherish him by, and to emulate his example of courage in the years ahead and whatever the world brings us. And as he often said in closing, I often said he hoped he was wrong, but he was afraid he was right. He said, take care of ourselves physically, take care of ourselves spiritually, take care of our relationships and our families, and most of all, trust our instincts, trust our guts, and trust God. So we're here with you, Rob, and thanks to you for your great friendship. Thanks to all of you who've been watching throughout the years and who miss Rob as much as I do. And here's our tribute to Rob Kirby. Are there any threads that tie all this together? What's going on?
Well done again. In my mind anyway, the common thread that runs through every one of the topics you just mentioned can be described as what we're observing is an epic battle between the forces of the globalists, or as Bush Sr. liked to refer to them as, the New World Order. And so it's a battle between the globalists and what's left of sovereign nations in this world. And it seems to me that up until now, or up until very recently, clearly the globalists have been in the driver's seat. The globalists are in charge of the apparatchik in the United States of America, as they are in most of the Western world, and as they are in the European theater through the creation of the Eurozone, and the drive on the part of the globalists to give it the elevator speech version. What they seek is one world government, one world currency, and one world religion, namely the worship of state itself. So this sort of is the umbrella over all the things that you mentioned in your opening.
Because the central bankers and the bankers are always willing to lend you more than what you can handle, and that goes back to the same story of foreign countries taking on American debt when they don't have the ability to create dollars, and they can only create their own domestic currency, but then their debt levels become big enough that the dollar protectors, the IMF, the World Bank, these are all dollar-centric entities, and they come in and say, we don't like your debt. So they downgrade your currency, and then suddenly you can't service your U.S. debt. Okay, and then that's when they harvest and take everything of real value that you have in exchange for dollars that they printed up out of thin air. And that's the real story of banking. And that's the real story of globalism. Okay, because if you're running such a racket, of course you'd want to extend it to the whole world, because the world's your oyster. You have the ability to create money out of thin air. And anywhere this is practiced, this is the result. And that's a fact. Look around you. Look at the world we live in. The whole world is hooped with debt. And it's never going to get better. Living conditions are never going to improve. Everybody making their nut, it's just going to become more and more difficult, because you're going to have to pay more tax, because the debt is never going to be retired. The debt that's been created can never be retired. And the only way governments have been able to stay solvent is that they now have negative interest rates attached to a lot of their new debt. So it's called money for free. So they get your money for free, and then they create more money out of thin air and hide it from you and don't acknowledge they've done it. And they get that for free too. But that's banking. That's what banking is. It's the biggest racket on the planet.
The issue is, it seems that your country is issuing at least an extra $1 trillion in new supply every year, compounding with the maturing existing supply. And I mean, nobody ever asked the question, who's really buying the bonds? Foreign participation in U.S. government bond auctions has been like a shadow of what it used to be. And yet the amounts being auctioned are incredibly more than they ever were. So who's buying it? Well, why don't you ask the Fed and what the $70 billion worth of repos really are all about? How about giving some liquidity to the bond market that doesn't exist anymore?
And it was last Thursday we saw the price of palladium and platinum, and platinum's been showing life lately with some very stiff up days. And it was, the COMEX market opens at 8:20 Eastern time in the morning every day, every business day. And when the COMEX market opened last Thursday, you can go and look at it on a historical chart. The price of palladium was hit the minute the market opened. The price had been stable all through the night in the Far Eastern markets. And at 8:20 when the COMEX opened, the price of palladium immediately plunged over $200, and the price of platinum collapsed by $50, which are huge, huge percentage moves. The palladium market basically, within minutes of being plugged, the palladium market rebounded but I mean, the drop on the chart was dramatic, and it was symbolic of an assassination. Okay, now we talk about and you hear it in the news how the Iranian general was assassinated or taken out with a drone. Well, I'm going to tell you that last Thursday, the platinum and the palladium markets were droned, okay, at 8:20, the second that the COMEX opened. And that is criminal activity. I can't say when normalcy will reign again in our capital markets, but all I can tell you is that it's not nice to fool Mother Nature. Normalcy will return at some point, and when it does, there will be hell to pay. And when there's hell to pay, it's best you're positioned for it, because this event, which will come, you can afford to be 20 minutes early, a day early, 3 days early, a week or a month early. But if you're 1 minute late, you're toast.
We are on a vertical part of the growth curve for money. And the globalist bankers knew that they were going to have to create untold trillions back last fall, but they couldn't announce to the world or to the American public specifically that they were going to print, $8 or $10 trillion in the first half of 2020, because humanity wouldn't have put up with it. So they needed an excuse to create the money that had to be created anyway, or the system would collapse. So the virus was dropped on humanity by globalist interests, and this way humanity welcomes the creation of any amount of money. My common sense tells me that there will come a point with the Fed spending the way they are and the way that I believe they have to continue, there will come a point where the rest of the world will collectively say no more dollars in trade. And not to say that the rest of the world will refuse to trade with America, but we're probably going to find out for sure whether America really has 8,000 tons of gold. Because I can see a day coming when countries like China, like Russia,
like Germany, like other countries in the European Union, say, we're willing to continue trading with you, America, but we just don't want dollars anymore. You're going to have to pay us in something else. And I think that day is fast approaching. My concern really, Dunnigan, is whether the people who are in control of the dollar, whether that is read as an act of war. If you start producing too many tens of trillions of dollars observably, people lose faith. And when people lose faith, the dollars come home. And when the dollars come home, you end up with hyperinflation in your domestic economy. And that's what central bankers, believe it or not, in America are kept awake at night, pondering and worrying about. When will the dollars come home and how are they going to handle it? This is what we're staring at. We're looking down the barrel of a Mao-inspired world. Okay? Where I come from, living under the tutelage of Mao Zedong isn't my first pick. Okay? What we have seen the tip of the iceberg of, it's sedition, it's treason, it's criminal, and you know what? Our media doesn't care. Our media doesn't care because they're in the same tank. They're in the same tank because they've taken the bribes from the same people. And you see, the problem is that our open society has been infected and been bought off and bribed by people who don't have our best interests at heart. And, America is the prize. America is the prize that the communists have been trying to win for, the better part of 100 years.
That whole assemblage of universal basic income, cashless society, unlimited currency creation by the Fed, all of that.
It's breadlines.
Yeah.
Universal basic income. It's central planning. Remember, central planning equals breadlines.
And universal basic income, if something can be given to you, it can be taken away. You can be cut off, just like that for doing, saying, or thinking the wrong thing. And you certainly can't keep the fruits of your labor.
That's what happens when you get to the front of the bread line and the guy in front of you got the last loaf. No bread. No bread for you to come back tomorrow. No bread today. Take your chances tomorrow. Who wants to live in a world like that? People who've been prudent, people who have saved are being punished. Retirees are being punished. Pension funds are being punished. Interest rates aren't naturally at zero. Interest rates were forced to zero. And if I force you to live in an environment where you get 1/10 of the air you currently get, you're not going to be a healthy Dunnigan very long. You're going to get very sick very quick. Well, what's happening to the retirement population? They're getting very sick very quick. Because that's the way it works. Because they're all yield starved. And do you know what that forces those people to do? Because they can no longer get yield from their fixed income quotient in their investment portfolio. It forces them down the risk curve. And they end up taking bigger and bigger and bigger risk elsewhere to try and make up for the lack of return in fixed income. So we basically have turned everyone into, everyone has a seat at the casino table now. And everyone's gambling. Because if you don't gamble, you don't earn anything. And if you don't earn anything, you're finished. I've completely divorced myself from anything that I would consider mainstream. I don't believe it. I think everybody needs to own some physical metal, because I think the day this does stop working for the powers that be, you will not be able to buy physical metal. And at that point in time, I do believe that metals prices will reflect the true scarcity of physical. Settle dollars through the SWIFT system. Venezuela's got the same problem. Russia's got the same problem. Well, pretty soon you're up to, we're talking China, Russia,
Iran, Venezuela, pretty soon you're up to maybe, I don't know, a third of the world's population? I mean, how can you maintain a rightful claim to be the operator of the world's reserve currency when you've told a third of the world they can't transact in your currency? That's the amazing thing about decentralized cryptos. It takes the banks right out of the equation. And that's the power of decentralized money. You can be your own bank. And this is what has scared the central banking class more than anything, because their lifespan has now been clearly defined. And it has, because the world's come to the realization that we don't need banks. Cryptocurrencies and software give us a viable alternative to tyranny. We don't need new rules. What we do need is to have existing rules enforced. The American financial house has a smoke alarm too. It's called the price of gold and the price of silver. When the price of gold and silver go dramatically higher, it warns people and alerts people that the currency is being abused, and people then, it becomes reinforcing unto itself, because that creates a domino effect where people buy more and more metal. It makes the metal's price go higher quicker. The founding fathers of America, if they were alive today, I don't believe there's one of them that would be allowed to have a presence on social media. They would all be censured. They would all be deplatformed, and none of them would have a word to say on social media, because Facebook would have them eliminated. YouTube would have them eliminated. Twitter, Instagram. This is the kind of thinking and the kind of thought that is unallowed. If we wake up a year from now and the dollar is no longer the currency of the United States of America, whatever the new currency is, real estate will be priced in it. And by holding real estate, you are lessening your exposure to dollars. And you will always be able to convert your real estate for whatever the currency of the realm is. And people who understand monetary science want to have assets that are tangible, that will reset in whatever the currency of the realm happens to be. So if we move to a gold standard, real estate will be convertible into gold. If we move to a digital currency standard, real estate will be convertible into digital currency. If you're holding dollars and dollars are no longer the currency of the realm, you get a big zero. This is why people that are steering the monetary ship are moving themselves towards tangibles. And the city is paralyzed. There are trucks blocking every major artery in Ottawa, to the point where the police are actually, and law enforcement are putting up roadblocks to prevent more trucks from getting there. And they say they're not leaving until the mandates are reversed and or Trudeau resigns.
BKBK asks, do you ever get out and do some nugget hunting?
Yes. Now, to answer that question, Dunnigan, nugget hunting to me, one of my favorite pastimes is attending garage sales and estate sales. And that's kind of how I get my kicks. And you'd be surprised how much metal I've been able to procure over the years buying scrap metal at garage sales and in estate sales, where you build it up, you build your store of it up over time by attending these types of events. And every now and then you go to a place that takes melt, and you have them melted on the spot, and they pay you cash on the spot. It's it's a hobby that tends to pay for itself somewhat.
What kind of forms have you found over the years?
Well, I mean, it could be sterling silver jewelry. It could be sterling silver knives and forks, or implements, or it could be a gold wristwatch. It could be gold jewelry. Junk silver coins. Pre 1966 silver coins. It comes in all different forms, gold chains, gold lockets. And I mean, I've literally picked some of these things out of I have literally picked old gold rings that were broken, and bought them for like 10 cents. People didn't even know they were gold. They had them in a box, and it's just there and it's deformed. And you pick it up and you look at it and it's got 14K stamped on it, and you buy it for 10 cents or 25 cents. And I mean, you're not going to get rich off this, in one sale, but it's just something it's like it's hunting for treasure. And that's what precious metal is. It's treasure. And it's fun. It's fun to hunt for it every now and then, because, this is something that generally tends to be weekend work for fun. Anyway, but I enjoy it, and I have fun doing it.
That's heartwarming.
I guess, yes, I do look for nuggets.
Well, thanks for that glimpse behind the scenes. There's another question here that Tony Him asks, Rob, in the light of the fact that 10 out of 10 people die at some point, how are you preparing for eternity?
With a lot of prayer, actually. A lot of prayer. And it's you're talking about your mortality, and you're talking about your health, and if you don't have your health, you've got nothing. And none of us get out of here alive, which is why prayer, I think, is a very, very good and a very important part of anyone's makeup and anyone's existence on this little blue planet, third from the sun. It's if you're not right with your maker, you're not going to be right with anything. So I would close on that point.
We've been speaking with Rob Kirby. Rob, as always, thank you very much for answering our questions and helping give us the insight of your wisdom. And thanks for joining us.
Been my pleasure.
My wife Melody deserves credit for the concept of this tribute to Rob. She encouraged me to consider it and to undertake it, and I'm grateful to her for her support in this and in all things related to liberty and finance, and for all of our families out there that she and I both care about deeply. So thank you on behalf of Melody and myself for watching this.